believe it is 8 o'clock, and so I just clicked on start streaming, and now I just clicked on start recording. And my chat room's not cleared from last time. Is that a bad thing? It usually is like refreshed and not there anymore. But let's find out. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the online live office hours for World Regional Geography, aka World Regions, right here at Virginia Tech, home of the Fighting Hokies or home of the Sad Hokies. Before I go any further, can I get a shout out in the chat room that anyone can both see and hear me? Is anything working tonight? It has been a kind of a doldrums of a weekend, has it not? I mean, I'm not in horrible spirits, but it's, I don't know, it's like sleepless in Seattle around here. It's just been gray skies for like 5 days straight, and we've survived a hurricane, and what a mess. And the football game was depressing. I think everybody might be in the doldrums, but let's see what we can do to pull you out of that. Let's talk about some international news, because that always cheers everyone up. Oh, I'm sorry, and I do have some people in the chat room. Oh, good, so things are working. So let's see who's joining us tonight here on the online live office hours for World Regions. We have Brad Jones back up in the hizzle saying hello. Hi, Boyer. Well, hello, Brad. Elliot C. back in the hizzle saying hello. A first-time chatter from GVU27 who says, I can hear and see you. Thank you, and thank you for your first-time chatter, GVU. Conadur back up in the hizzle that's giving me a confirmation. R Cover C is giving me the Velociraptor head, as per always. Thank you, Cover. Aaron Bai says, loud and clear. Somber Moon Knight says, hey, Professor Boyer. Rex76 Plays is back in the house saying, hey, welcome back, Rex. Let's see. Al Kazari is back in the hizzle, and GVU's giving me a whoop whoop shout out. It's Alex100 is back in the hizzle. Ian Savino is back in the hizzle. Randomly forgot I'm still following you from 2009 when I had your class as a freshman. So Ian Savino is back in the hizzle from over a decade away. Thank you for joining in, Ian. 2009. Ian, where was the class being taught in 2009? That was still McBride 100. I don't think we were in Burris Auditorium yet, but Ian will confirm. Ian, in 2009, what room here at the wonderful University of Virginia Tech did you take World Regions in? Ian Savino says, yep. I had the night class. It was dope. I did a night class?
Back to back, yeah, you did.
Of World Regions?
Yeah.
I don't remember doing a back-to-back class. What on earth would I have done that for?
Your demand was still really high.
Oh, okay. Katie says the demand for the class was so high that I had to teach 2 classes of 500 back-to-back. That is kind of ringing a bell, because I would always get confused how far I'd gotten in the lecture, right, Katie? I'm like, how far? And I would just start, maybe Ian remembers this as well. I would just walk in going, hey, what's the last thing I said to you good people last week? Because I can't remember where I left off. Well, welcome back, Ian. And Ian says, you still doing the China versus U.S. fight and the stormtroopers? I don't remember that skit. Well, we're all online now, Ian, so we haven't done anything cool for a very long time. And plus, we can't do all the hijinks and stunts that we used to do live in class. And no offense to you younger folks who are currently in this online class, but we used to do all kinds of hijinks in the live class, where literally ninjas would jump out and storm the room, like 50 of them. And one time there was a stormtrooper fight, as Ian is suggesting. One time there was a fight that broke out, and again, this was staged. But one time we had, Ian, I can't remember the China versus USA fight. I don't remember how that one played out or what the point of that was. But I do remember a stormtrooper showing up from Star Wars. So where I was going with this is we don't do any of those things anymore, because it's a different era, and I guess the world is more dangerous, although I would argue the world's always been dangerous, and a lot more students would be really bothered or troubled by that. And a surprise, a shock like ninjas jumping out from behind curtains screaming might, truly, what do you call it, trigger some people and cause them to have to go seek counseling and stuff. I'm not making fun of anybody. I don't want anybody to get their feelings hurt or be triggered or have to seek out counseling just because we did a silly stunt in class. So we don't do the crazy stunts that we used to do. But I kind of want to bring them back. Everybody always had so much fun doing it, and it was always such a shockingly fun surprise. I mean, it did take people by surprise oftentimes, sometimes myself included, because the class started to get so unruly that people started doing their own stunts in class. And I remember one time we had a streaker. No, we had like 4 streakers went through the class one time, if you remember that, Katie.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was 10 streakers. For you young people, a streaker is someone who takes off all their clothes and runs through a public place. I don't think anybody does that anymore either because they lock you up immediately. It was a kinder, funner time 20 years ago in America. Things weren't taken so deadly serious. And I'd like to see us get back to those days, but I don't know if me having streakers and ninjas is the way to do it. However, we had a really good time. And I kind of feel like increasingly I need to go back to teaching live. Maybe not with all the crazy surprise stunts, but to do more in-person stuff. Because I used to actually just sometimes randomly just have a pizza delivery guy show up and bring in like 100 pizzas. We should do that this semester. If somebody wants to come see me lecture live, we'll make it a pizza party. And so, sorry to go off on that tangent, but it was great talking with you, Ian. I'm glad you're coming back to class after 15 years. Hope you're doing well in life and achieving all the success that you deserve. I still don't remember the night class, but okay. Let's see, who did I miss here? Let's see, first time chatter from Tanned Polluter. Tanned Polluter, which says best viewers on Artemis Minor. Is that just a spam, Katie? Okay, well, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I just don't know what it means. Let's see. Wabibi145 back in the Hizzle saying, yo, Wolverine Lover back in the Hizzle. Welcome back, Wolverine Lover. And by the way, Wolverine Lover, how is the new Wolverine and Deadpool movie? I still haven't seen it. Let's see. Ian says, I'm glad you're still rocking it. Thanks for teaching me so long ago how to read and understand the news. Well, thank you, Ian. That is the best compliment I can be possibly given. 3 Cats, Pat is back up in the Hizzle. Welcome back, Cats. Lily Pags. Lily Pag says, are we doing the Where's Waldo thing? Yeah, Lily. Actually, I promised everybody last week I was going to do Where's Waldo, and I was going to do it Thursday or Friday, and then a hurricane came. So we will dust it back off this week come hell or high water. We still have 10 weeks of class left, so we can still do 10 Where's Waldos. It will be starting this week. We'll send out an email. Kate, if you want to remind me, I'll send out the email right after this to get people to sign up for this separate listserv for it. Yes, Lily Pags, sorry for the hurricane delay on the Where's Waldo. I already had it perfectly set up too, and I still might use this as the very first one, but it's a very recognizable site that's semi-related to football, and so I was going to do it on Friday during the football game, and then things just went to shit. both in the weather, but also for the game. Let's see, Rex76 says, dude, a live lecture would be awesome, all in caps. Lily Pags is pointing upwards. Guy GVU says, I agree. Elliot C said, I would love a live lecture. Lily Pags said, I'll be down for a live lecture. Awesome. Ivan Latanki is back up in the Hizzle saying, yo, what's up, warrior dude? What's going on? Ivan, welcome back. I believe Ivan is also a return visitor from Ghost of Semesters Past of World Regions, but I could be wrong. Ivan, when did you take the class? Wolverine Lover says, it was amazing. I've seen it 8 times. Lisa Lasita is back up in the Hizzle saying, good evening from Seattle. Well, welcome back From the West Coast, Best Coast, Lisa Lasita. And while Seattle is known for rain and being sleepless in Seattle, I think we've got you beat. We've been having the Seattle weather here for a week, and that hurricane just does not seem to want to let go of us, Lisa. It's raining more here than you're getting in Seattle right now. And low ceiling clouds and fog. Woo! It is Seattle-like here in downtown Blacksburg. Let's see. But welcome back, Lisa. And Lily Pag says, have you been following the hurricane? It's crazy. Well, I don't think I've been following the hurricane, Lily Pags. I think the hurricane has been following us. We were pretty close there to the epicenter for a while. That was a wacky Saturday morning, was it not? Or was that Friday morning? When did it hit? It was Friday morning. It was Friday morning where we got pistol whipped with rain up until like the late afternoon. Well, BB, and by the way, I hope everybody's safe and dry, and I don't think you got into too much trouble if you're here in Blacksburg, but hopefully your families are doing okay. If any of you are from the south part of the United States, you might have family that got hit worse than we did here. Wabibi says, thoughts on all the Diddy things going on? Honestly, Wabibi, I'm trying not to think of Diddy. I've rarely thought of Diddy, but the revelations of what he was up to now for all these decades is pretty scary and pretty sad for all the people that were involved. And by the way, the only thing I remember about Diddy, and it kind of tipped the hat to how crazy he was, but you all will have to help me remember, was this about Diddy? So this is likely before most of your time, although there's some older folks in the chat room with us here. There was this dude named Dave Chappelle, and he had a show called The Dave Chappelle Show. Does anybody remember this show? And they had an episode where it was like an MTV reality show spoof, and it was about 10 people living in an apartment in New York City who were working for Diddy. I think, Katie, is that ringing a bell? Was it Diddy because Dave Chappelle was the one playing Diddy, and it was the one where they were all trying to learn how to get into the music business, and Diddy was supposed to be teaching them, but then he would just say, I need y'all to go down and get me some Vietnamese woman's breast milk. Does that ring a bell at all? I think that was supposed to be making fun of because he was Puff at the time, right? That would have been like 2003. So does anybody know what I'm even talking about here? That was my introduction. At my age, I knew of Puff Daddy Diddy. Sean Combs, right? That was his original name. I knew of him in the 90s and 2000s, but not really that much. And then when I saw that Chappelle spoof of him that made him look like a total insane person.
Yes, that was it. Yeah.
What was it called?
I only drink the finest breast.
Breastest milk. But they were carrying him around on a couch, and yeah. So it was Dave Chappelle making fun of Diddy, and that was 20 years ago. And he made it look so outrageous, but like a lot of comedy, obviously Chappelle knew Diddy enough that there was a grain of truth in what he was mocking. And you don't want my opinion of Diddy. I don't have one. I'd love to know Dave Chappelle's opinion of what's going on, because he must have had some insight into Diddy's behavior. And also in the same show, roughly in the same time, Dave Chappelle was merciless in mocking R. Kelly. Was it R. Kelly that peed on a girl? Yeah, he was merciless in mocking R. Kelly. And Dave Chappelle knows his music and knows these celebrities, some of them personally. So I'm very curious to see if Chappelle says anything about Diddy. But sorry for those of you that tuned in to learn about the world. I mean, I guess this is about the world a little bit, but not the kind of stuff that I'm used to teaching about. So let me follow up on the chats. Ivan says took the class in fall 2022. So just a couple of years ago now. Awesome. Welcome back, Ivan. Lily Pack said, also, what should our points be around now to be on track for an A? Katie already responded, about 450 to 500. Tons of points this week. Do everything this week and you'll be jumping ahead, but do it well so you get the maximal points for every one of the assignments. But I think there's like at least 4, or maybe 5 lecture quizzes, and including a flash quiz that's already up and another one that I'm going to produce based on enough of you voting last week that you wanted me to do a short lecture on the sea change of international organizations. So I'm going to do that this week. So, and then you got the movie, and then you got a book quiz. You got a lot of points happening this week. Stay on it. Start now. Don't wait till Friday. Let's see. Lisa Lasita says, I didn't see that episode. I remember the Dave Chappelle and Rick James episode. Yeah, that was the gold episode. But yeah, just go back and Google Dave Chappelle and Diddy on Chappelle's show. I'm sure it'll pop up. Let's see. And that is the best insight into what was somebody talking about Diddy 20 years ago that now makes the jokes make a lot more sense of what's now been revealed about Diddy. Lisa Lasita with some Joker faces and some musical things, and Fadi Ghanim saying, hey, also here from last semester. Welcome back, Fadi. And we got a first-time chatter from Andre Wolavieri. What's a good name? Andre says, what were your thoughts on the end of the Miami VT game? I didn't watch it. Those things are too stressful. I can't watch that stuff. But obviously everybody's really sad about it. So I'm not the hugest of sports fans, but I say rah, go for the team. And I actually really like the coach. Pry is a really great guy. We've met him multiple times now and actually had a drink or two with him. So he's a genuinely good human being. I think he's a pretty good coach too, but again, I'm not a sports person. But we're all really rooting for him, and I know this is probably, I'm sure that game was a really hard loss for him, as well as the whole team. So what was you all's take on the game? Let's see. Rex says, my dorm went insane at the end of the game on Friday, LOL. Lily Pag said the game was insane. Well, Baby says the Transformer 1 movie is a hot, good watch. Transformer 1? There's another Transformer movie? I didn't even know. I thought they gave those things up like a decade ago. Okay, but now we get more serious. Well, as serious as you want to get. This is your online office hour. I'm just here as your host on Fantasy Island to answer whatever questions you would like answered, or at least attempt to answer, and bring you some deeper understanding of the world's events. I can't really give you any deeper understanding of the Virginia Tech football game. I can't really give you much more understanding about the Diddy situation. But is there anything else on your mind, maybe globally, that you'd like to chat about or ask questions about, or any of the class material that you'd like to ask questions about? Okay. Rex Play said we should have won. We got a touchdown to go ahead at the end of the game, but the refs decided to reverse it and take it away, so we lost. Oh, I didn't even know that. So they had a touchdown called back at the end of the game? Oh, my gosh. Oh, no wonder everybody's going nuts. Yeah, that makes it even worse. Gosh. Fadi Ghanem says, what are your thoughts on Hezbollah leader getting killed this week? There you go. There's a real world question to really bring the mood way down to depressing. So I know most of you were probably too busy doing your classwork, for starters, right? And then also too busy trying to survive a hurricane. And then also too busy watching Virginia Tech in a heartbreaking game. So you haven't really been following world events. But friends, there's been a whole bunch of world events that also occurred at the same time. All these crazy things have been happening here in Blacksburg. Namely, the leader of this group called Hezbollah was killed. I don't know if it's hard to say when you call things assassination. Somebody Google that for me. What's the technical term? What's the technical definition of assassination? My instinct is that an assassination is any intentional attempt to kill a world leader or a political leader is an assassination. Otherwise, it's just murder. I mean, if someone comes in and kills me, that's just murder. It's not an assassination. And Israel has been bombing southern Lebanon now for 4 days in intentional strikes to kill members of a group named Hezbollah, which have been dug into central and southern Lebanon for, I don't know, decades. And Hezbollah is an anti-Israel group. Hezbollah is not representative of the Lebanese government, although they are one of the most powerful components of Lebanese society. Even though they're not elected, they don't hold government positions, and it's not the Lebanese military. So I should try to explain Hezbollah just like for one hot second more. Hezbollah is a group that the United States, and many other Western countries categorize as a terrorist group. Hezbollah and its supporters, namely Iran and other Iranian allies, would label as freedom fighters. They would say, hey, we are here in southern Lebanon to push back against Israeli aggression or to fight against Israel no matter what, at any time, any place, to beat back Israeli influence or possibly even territorial expansion. Hezbollah is not directly related to the groups in the Gaza Strip or West Bank. Those are different people. Those are Palestinians who have their own political parties. One of those political parties is actually also labeled as a terrorist group. I know I'm already getting too deep here, but let me stick with Hezbollah. So Hezbollah, here's what you really need to know. Hezbollah is funded by and supported by Iran. The tie there is that Iran is predominantly Shia Islam, Shia Muslims. Okay, there are two main branches of Islam. Kind of like the way you think of Christianity, that there's Roman Catholics and Protestants, even though they're all Christian. In Islam, you have the Sunni side and the Shia side. Now, I'm not going to get into a whole lecture of why there's two sides. It actually goes back to the 7th century, the succession of Muhammad, praise be upon him, the kind of founder of Islam, and who was going to take over for him. There was fights between competing groups that ended up having these two different sides of Islam. Although theologically and philosophically, there's virtually no difference between the two groups. Religiously, there's not a whole lot of difference. It's more of a power structure thing. They do have some separate customs, but it's very minimal. And Iran has been the center of the Shia side of Islam, again, since the 7th and 8th and 9th centuries. And Iran is mostly Shia. And Iran supports other groups around the Middle East that are Shia. And to cap this all off so you really understand the importance of this particular event, Iran really hates Israel. And for its part, Israel really hates Iran. So if you had to look at all of the countries of the Middle East, and all of the countries of the Middle East at times in the past, the present, or possibly the future, have had friction with Israel. So this is a tough neighborhood, okay? And lots of folks don't get along with Israel, and Israel doesn't get along with lots of folks across this part of the Middle East, okay? Having said that, Iran is probably enemy number one for Israel. And Iran is very vocal about saying, we don't think the state of Israel should exist. So those are kind of two major competing forces. And hopefully that will help you start to understand why would Iran be funding and supporting some Shia group in southern Lebanon? Because Iran really hates Israel. And Iran kind of sees itself as a leader in the Middle East that is supporting other anti-Israeli groups all around the Middle East. So Iran actually supports another group called Hamas, which is the ones that are in the Gaza Strip that are getting bombarded ever since they did a terrorist attack October 7th. We're almost going on the 1-year anniversary of a Hamas attack on Israel that you definitely heard about, where a bunch of armed gunmen ran across the border and started killing tons of people and took a bunch of hostages. That's what caused the current crisis and the current, I'd say, war between Israel and the Gaza Strip, but it's pretty much shooting ducks in a barrel. Hamas is another group that is individual people. That's an organization that some people think is a terrorist group, other thinks are freedom fighters fighting for Palestinian independence. And they're dug into the Gaza Strip, and they're also pushing back against Israel. And those are the folks that Israel has been bombing the sweet bejesus out of since October 7th last year. This Hezbollah group, hopefully, am I going too fast, by the way? Stop me if I'm going too fast or if you have specific questions. And I'll say one more thing, then I'll go to the chat room. The Hezbollah is different than Hamas. Again, they share similar missions, but they are different. And Hezbollah is dug into southern Lebanon. And by the way, I think I've got a map here somewhere, right? We call this, by the way, the allies, the supporters and allies of Iran, we call this the Shia Crescent. And it's not exactly a crescent. None of this is exact. But it's a nice, tidy way to understand what's going on here. The Shias and the Sunnis have had conflicts in the past, sometimes open conflicts over the millennia. But mostly it's just kind of cultural friction between Iran and all of the other Arab countries around this part of the world, which are both Arab and Sunni. And Iran is Persian, ethnically Persian, and Shia. So you have these two different competing teams, right? For, I won't say outright control, but for fighting for influence and possibly resources and possibly territory across the Middle East. Two different teams. The Sunnis and the Shias are the one that mostly have kind of faced off over time. However, with the introduction of the creation of Israel, now Iran also really hates Israel, and that's why there's friction between those two states as well. Now, the Shia Crescent is this countries or parts of countries that have a significant Shia minority or a Shia majority. So the darker the green is on this map you see right here. Okev just joined the chat room. Welcome, Okev, who says, heyo. The darker the green on this map, the higher the percentage of Shia Muslims, right? In Iran, again, is kind of the epicenter. But if you see that crescent kind of that reaches all the way up to Lebanon, southern Lebanon, or Lebanon in general, but southern Lebanon has a significant number of Shia people in it as well, and that's why there's an alliance there. You may have heard of another group that Iran supports way down on the bottom end of the crescent, down in Yemen. These guys are called the Houthis, and the Houthis have been fighting against the Arab countries like Saudi Arabia and pushing back, and Iran funnels money and guns to those as well. So, and Iran has influence and funnels money and guns into Iraq, which has a sizable Shia minority, not majority. So the Iranians really use their oil power and wealth to influence politics of the region by supporting specific groups, but not really themselves personally going to war with anybody. So this is what we call a proxy war. When you pay somebody else to go fight on your behalf, that's a proxy. So Iran is kind of famous or infamous in today's world for having a lot of proxy fighting groups that it's funneling money, support, guns, whatever, to in order to keep whipping up conflict between the Arab world, but also whipping up conflict with Israel. Now, for their part, people like Hamas and other folks in Palestine will say, we don't give a crap about Iran. We're fighting for, Palestinian independence. And that's why they're fighting against Israel. So it's not as, I'm not trying to present this as cut and dry, that Israel funds other groups to go pick on Israel and pick fights. No. There's conflict happening at multiple levels for multiple reasons across this central Middle East area. Palestine versus Israel, Israel versus Palestine, Israel versus Syria, Israel versus pretty much all its neighbors in times past, although some of the neighbors now have recognized Israel and have peaceful relations with them. But this is a volatile place. that is becoming more and more volatile. And now I could finish off this rant about this particular story of, well, what's this about? Well, this live update here. Hezbollah's leadership nearly decimated, says national security spokesman. Could a Lebanon free of Iran's tyranny join the Abraham Accords? These are all things you probably don't know. But what you got going on here, well, let's just click on the ABC News one. Hopefully it won't pop up 10 million commercials. Is that even though Israel has been currently fighting... Oh, it's going to try to start a video. No, I don't want your video. Now it's going to make me do a video. Okay, screw that story. Bye. How about just CNN? Well, that make me play a video. No one just writes stories anymore. They always want you to watch a video. Let's see. Hezbollah leaders killing escalates war with the West. There you go. So this is all part of the story I've been now ranting about for 10 minutes. And that is that even though Israel for the last year, almost a year, has been fighting against Hamas down in the West Bank, in the Gaza Strip, and they're also now fighting against different groups in the West Bank. Those are different territories. Just last week, Israel decided to go ahead and proactively strike back against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon because they must have had intel that Hezbollah was getting ready to strike them or was going to start whipping up trouble up in northern Israel. Does that all make sense? And for those that don't know these territories, again, this is a whole separate giant lecture. Let's see if I can open image in new tab. Let's get a zoom in on this. Okay, so now you might start to see some of the things I've been referencing. And that Hatchered Blue area up in southern Lebanon up there, that's kind of where Hezbollah is entrenched and dug in. And again, Hezbollah has a lot of influence and power over the Lebanese government itself, even though it's not elected and it's not officially the Lebanese government. It's mostly an anti-Israeli political/military group. And so you probably heard stories just before the hurricane, took over our collective consciousness about a bunch of pagers blowing up. Did anybody hear that story? That a bunch of pagers across southern Lebanon blew up, like 100, 200 of them, and killed a bunch of people. And then a bunch of walkie-talkies blew up the next day. All of this was long game counterintelligence conducted by the Israeli kind of CIA and the Israeli military. I think it's called the IDF. And they basically, for years, have been setting up a fake company to get pagers that Hezbollah uses to communicate amongst its members and put explosives in them, and then just waited until the opportune time to blow them all up at once when it behooved Israel to do that whenever they thought Hezbollah was going to attack them. Had Hezbollah attacked Israel more aggressively at any given point, they would have blown everything up immediately. But they blew up a bunch of these pagers that had been covertly infiltrated into the Hezbollah network, and then walkie-talkies that also had bombs in them that were infiltrated into the Hezbollah network. And last week, Israel decided to go ahead and pull the trigger, literally pull the trigger on those weapons, blew up a bunch of people, and unfortunately kids and civilians, so this is not some happy story I'm telling about, yay, everything's great. This was a military maneuver, a very tricky one, and then on top of that, Israel decided to go ahead and start bombing the sweet bejesus out of southern Lebanon as well, and they might even start bombing Beirut, which is the capital of Lebanon. And this poor country's just screwed, but I'll get to that later. So what you have now is another front of this Israeli war on what it says is a war on terrorism, a war on these parties which are trying to either destroy Israel or just terrorize it. And today, the news story, now I've come full circle and can finish the news story. Today, they did announce that they killed the top head honcho. They already killed a bunch of the upper echelon folks in Hezbollah with the pagers and walkie-talkies. And then today, with a bombing campaign, it was announced, and Hezbollah admitted it, yes, you actually got our top guy. So the entire leadership of this group has been decimated. And they have no reliable communications networks. So this is a really big story because it might end up being a game changer for Israel, maybe, It might be a game changer for Lebanon, which is a country that not everybody's terribly happy has a covert terrorist / freedom fighter group embedded in it that has pulled Lebanon into war with Israel, the result of which now Israel's bombing Lebanese cities, and Lebanese people are like, this isn't our war. They barely have control over the country at all, and some might argue, myself included, the Lebanese government has no control over its own territory. It is in a state of chaos. It is what I would call a disordered state, and somebody remind me in the textbook, I haven't done it up to this semester, but now Lebanon has to get put into the disordered state's political system. There's no one in charge of this place. And with the decimation of the most powerful military group in Lebanon, this is a game changer. It could go one of two ways. Lebanon could fall into even complete and utter chaos, which it's close, or it could turn a corner and actually the government could regain control of its territories if indeed this Hezbollah group has been so weakened that the Lebanese government could step up and actually exert control back over their state. It's hard to even say that the Lebanese government does not really have sovereignty because they had another group in their country who was more powerful than them. So it's hard to even argue that Lebanon is a sovereign state in today's world. But this decimation of this Hezbollah group could be a game changer for them. And in ways that I'll have to explain more if you want a separate lecture on it, about these things called the Abraham Accords of different countries that were starting to make peace with Israel just before all of this shit hit the fan October 7th of last year. Many of us, myself included, would argue that the horrific terrorist attack that was conducted on October 7th of last year was done intentionally to derail any other countries in efforts to make peace with Israel. Saudi Arabia, it was rumored, and the Biden administration was trying to broker a deal where the Saudis were going to finally establish peaceful, full relations with Israel. And that was going to be a huge game changer. So most of us who kind of look deeper into these things than the headlines, most of us saw this terrorist attack as very intentionally trying to derail the Saudis from having any sort of peace with Israel, and really the whole region from having any sort of normalized relations with Israel. And they were banking on that Israel was going to come back so hardcore and kill so many people in the ensuing war that it would change public opinion. And in that respect, they're kind of right. So it is a little bit tricky, depending on who you support in this conflict. And I don't support anybody. I'm just a reporter. I try to understand these events and bring the understanding to you. So I certainly am no fan of war. I'm certainly no fan of civilian deaths, of which there have been tens of thousands. I hate to see innocent people get bombed who have no power to do anything about these conflicts between states and non-state actors like terrorist groups. So it's the whole thing's a sad story for me, but I'm here to help you understand it, not pass judgment on anybody and say, oh, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys. I just want you to understand. Has my little rant here helped you understand anything about why this Hezbollah thing has started up, why the killing of the top leader, who, by the way, was on the World Region's Death Watch 10 years ago. He made the Death Watch for a bunch of years, and then he never died, and we stopped doing the Death Watch. But he is a world leader that could have been on the tic-tac-toe board this semester. And in fact, if you guys retroactively want to put him on there, because no one even gave me suggestions for the Death Watch, if you want to retroactively build a Death Watch, we can put him on there, because why not? Okay, now I'll go to all the comments that I missed, and please give me a shout out if any of this made sense, if anything I just said in the last 30 minutes helped you understand the situation any better, or if it made it even more muddled and worse, because that's the last thing I want to do. I want to help enlighten, not make the waters more muddy. To the chat room. Rex Play says, in quotes, the murder of a public figure. That's assassination. Bam. Aaron Bai says, assassination, a nation that is sassy. Thank you for that, Rex Player. And Wabibi, there you go. Thoughts on Israel blowing up pagers in Lebanon. I got to that eventually before I even saw your comment. And Fadi is the one who started this thread by asking what I thought about the Hezbollah leader getting killed this week. So I've covered those two things now. While BB says Pakistan recently found a really large oil reserve, do you see Western countries or China or Russia trying to get their refineries there? Pakistan and China have already been building very friendly relations. China, you're going to learn about this in the Chinese lecture because China in the class survey won number 3. Number 3 slide. The number 1 region that you all picked, by the way, was Japan. The number 2 region that was picked was the polar regions. In a first for world regions, the class has picked a lecture on the polar regions. Number 3 was China, East Asia and China. I'm trying to think what number 4 was. Number 4 was Australia. Or maybe number 4 might have been Middle East. Middle East and Australia were like 4 and 5. So I got my work cut out for me this semester. But back to China, you will see a lecture on China, and you will hear about something called the Belt and Road Initiative or the New Silk Road Initiative. And so in that initiative, and that is China investing in countries all across Eurasia and Africa, investing in helping them build port facilities, helping countries invest in building roads, networks, ports, railroads, and also sending Chinese company to go, buy mineral and mines and mineral rights so they can start mining, and tying this coalition of countries that they're helping either with direct monetary contributions, like they go build a soccer stadium for free in Zimbabwe, or they give these countries really big loans to help, here's a $20 million or $50 million loan to help Pakistan develop a better port industry, which I think Pakistan did borrow $50 million from China to revamp its major naval port. So China's been doing that in an effort to build its alliances and a trade network. Not really like military alliances. China always focuses much more on trade. And what they want to do is kind of have all of Eurasia and Africa in a single network that all ties back to them. So that makes them more powerful, more influential, and it also helps take away, any reliance on the Western countries of the United States in particular. So China's been working on that, and I bring all this up still on your question about Pakistan found a bunch of oil and who's going to help out. Russia already has too much oil. It's already selling it at discount prices because no one in the West will buy it. So Russia won't have much of a hand there. But China has been for at least a decade now really been cozying up to Pakistan. Pakistan for decades was a U.S. ally, and all of that just went to shit. And ever since this dude named Osama bin Laden was hiding out in Pakistan. So Pakistan used to be a U.S. ally, is now, that's kind of gone away, maybe entirely. And now Pakistan is much more looking to China as an economic partner, if not more. And so with very little uncertainty, I tell you, if there is a bunch of oil in Pakistan, it's certainly, it belongs to Pakistan, but they don't have the, I should say, technical know-how and knowledge and history of oil production and refining to really take advantage of it. So they will have to partner with somebody, and that somebody will likely be China, because they've already been kind of starting to partnering up with China. Hope that makes sense. But back to the chat room. Let's see. Okay, Kev, back in the hizzle. Dr. Knockers. Here we go. Dr. Knockers. Dr. Knocker says, indeed, we should also mention U.S./Israeli support for bloodthirsty phalangist in Lebanon. Whoa. Dr. Knocker knows his Lebanese history. I'm not even well versed enough to talk about the phalangist, but yes, I know what you're referencing, Dr. Knockers. And Dr. Knockers also says Hezbollah has legislative legitimacy too. They have 1 seat in parliament. Thank you, Dr. Knockers. Yes, I did kind of too glibly pass over that. They were and are still primarily a military group, but they've been in Lebanon so long, and they do have kind of true power that they do have a component of the government and seats in government as a political party. Hezbollah would say, hey, we're a legitimate political party, therefore we can elect our people to the Lebanese government, and that has happened. Again, other people would say you're not a political party so much as a military or a terrorist group, depending on who you're talking to. So it's a little tricky, but Dr. Knockers is right. They actually have, over time, also gotten a political component. But again, it's likely that Israel will continue to target all of the upper echelon leadership of Hezbollah, including the elected officials, very likely, and some of them might have been the ones that have been killed already. I don't know. Things are happening really fast there. Fadi Ghanem says, thank you. Great overview of the situation. I miss your class. Well, I miss you, Fadi. Thanks for tuning in. Only here for the Plaidcast is back as well. And only Plaidcast says Mossad, I think, would be the Israel equivalent of the CIA. Yeah, so the IDF is the Israeli Defense Force. And Plaidcast, maybe Google that. Is the IDF just the official name for the Israeli military? I always get confused because, we just have the U.S. military. It's the U.S. military. We've got Navy, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. I think maybe there isn't an Israeli military. I think it's called the IDF. Only here is backing me up. Yeah, so instead of just saying the Israeli military, we say the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF. And only here for the Plaidcast is correct. There is a group called Mossad, Mossad, and they are the equivalent of the CIA. But they might even be more proactive than the CIA, because it was definitely Mossad that got involved and probably ran the whole operation of getting these bombs in pagers. That's just the kind of thing Mossad does. Okay. Lily Pag says, do you think Saudi-Israeli relations will improve in a few years, or has this war ruined the chances of it? That's the question that all pundits are asking and all government officials are wondering about as well. And far be it from me to even pretend like I have any specific insight. Everybody's guessing on this one. And it's too close to call for me personally, because the world was moving in that direction of Arab countries, the Arab countries surrounding Israel, really for decades now have been less vocal about hating Israel, have been much more open to dialogue with Israel, have been much more open to even establishing true peaceful relations with Israel. And some countries have already done it, namely Egypt and Jordan already did it. And then there was something called the Abraham Accords, where you'll have to go Google this because I don't know it off the top of my head. Donald Trump did this. Former President Trump actually oversaw something called the Abraham Accords, wherein two or three other Arab countries normalized relations with Israel. I want to say Kuwait. Somebody Google it for me. The Abraham Accords, who all recognized Israel after that. So a lot of progress was really being made, and really recently. And again, I would suggest, as would many pundits, that might have been the actual fuel that filled the engine of Hamas to do this daring and brutal attack on Israel back on October 7th. Because many of the Hamas group, and maybe many Palestinians in general, really have been leading horrible lives, depressing existence, and really felt that their backs are against the wall. And if all the other Arab countries recognize Israel, then they're screwed. The Palestinians are screwed. If everybody else gets nicey nice with Israel, then the Palestinians feel like that Israel will just openly consume the Gaza Strip and West Bank and just take it over and say, well, we're friends with everybody, so nobody's going to do anything about it. That's very, very likely why Hamas decided to do something absolutely crazy to really hit the hornet's nest and start all this up again. So I can't tell you, Pags, no one knows what even next week is going to bring. And it's now so complicated because the death toll of civilians is so great. That might be changing the attitudes of these surrounding countries that at one point were going to make peaceful relations with Israel. But if the civilian death toll gets so great, it becomes harder and harder for Saudi Arabia to then make peaceful relations with Israel after Israel has killed tens of thousands of people now in Gaza and now in Lebanon, and if it keeps going and it spills into other countries. And again, I'm just telling you the facts here. I'm not saying, oh, Israel's killing all these people, Israel's bad. I'm like, no, they are in a war. They are saying we are at war for our very existence, and we are at war against terrorism. That is a argument that can be made, and Israel and supporters of Israel make that argument. Other folks who are pro-Palestinian supporters are saying, or even just pro-Lebanese humans are saying, dudes, there's a whole bunch of civilians that are getting slaughtered here that have nothing to do with this mess. And that's a good argument as well. So I always try to show you both sides of the story and make both arguments so that you understand why people are so torn about this situation that seemingly is getting worse and seemingly may spread to yet other countries. I don't know if other Arab countries will be able to get over this, particularly Saudi Arabia. And by the way, side note, one of the reasons why Saudi Arabia will have a hard time, normalizing relations with Israel after this is because Saudi Arabia is a big country with tens of millions of people, and a lot of those people support Palestinians. So it will become very hard for the Saudi government to say, well, this is going to piss off 50 million of our citizens, but we're going to do this anyway. That's hard for political leaders to do. So it certainly has thrown a monkey wrench into the Saudi plans to normalize relations with Israel anytime in the near future. Certainly not while this active conflict is happening, and probably not for years after that. It will really take kind of everything to cool down for a while before anybody starts talking about normalizing relations again. But you know what? Sometimes the world changes on a dime and things happen really fast. But this mess is still so hot, there's no predicting what's going to happen even a week from now, much less a year or 2 or 3 years from now. Any pundit who gets on TV and says this is what is definitely going to happen, they're just full of shit. I mean, this is too complicated. There's too much going on. Let's see. Back to the chat room. Hopefully that answered the question for you, Lily Pags. Dr. Knocker says, I've seen many Lebanese, Christians, Sunnis, LGBTQ community voice solidarity with Hezbollah resistance because they are the only ones out there fighting against the violent incursions into their countries. Yes, it is also tricky to try to categorize all groups, so I do not like to do that. It makes things really simple to understand if you wildly oversimplify things and be like, yes, everyone in Lebanon loves Hezbollah, or everyone in Lebanon hates Israel, hates Hezbollah. That's an oversimplification. It's much more complicated than that. So I couldn't even gander a guess of the breakdown of how many Lebanese people actually like and support Hezbollah. My instinct is that it's less than half. That's just my instinct. And mostly I say that because Lebanon has just been in a state of utter chaos for a decade or decades now. It's a really great country that is just, man, nothing has gone right in Lebanon. Just go look up Lebanese history of the last 5 years. There was a giant explosion that blew up half the main port. I mean, their economy has collapsed multiple times. This is a chaotic state that's now in a war not of their own making. So it's just really a mess. And that's why I'm saying, Dr. Knockers, this is just a hypothesis. My instinct is that the majority of people in Lebanon just want normal life. And I don't think that a majority of them see supporting a militarized group, whether you like them personally or not. I don't know that a majority of or even a sizable minority of people in Lebanon think that supporting a militarized group which is facing off against another country is a hope for their future. I think most Lebanese people are simply trying to survive, and they're not really betting on a horse that's picking a fight with a group in another country. Hezbollah's mission has nothing to do with Lebanon itself. Nothing. And again, I'm not picking sides here, friends. I'm trying to get you to understand. Hezbollah has one mission, that's fight Israel. Hezbollah has not a second mission that says, and make Lebanon a peaceful, prosperous place. That's not part of their mission. So it's very tricky to try to figure out, well, who likes who even within Lebanon. But my instincts are, man, most Lebanese people would just like a normal life and not be at war with anybody. So that's why I'm suggesting if Hezbollah has been significantly knocked out here, it might be hard for Hezbollah to rebuild if enough Lebanese people say, hey, we just want to end the war. We don't want to fight with Israel anymore because we didn't want to fight with Israel to begin with. Hezbollah did. And so you could see a movement to kind of take back control. And I don't know that Saudi Arabia is going to be able to recognize and make peace with Israel anytime soon. But here's a radical prediction. Here's a radical possibility. If Lebanon can put its house in order and actually Hezbollah is damaged enough, you might see Lebanon recognize Israel and say, hey, by the way, we just don't want to fight anymore, and so we'll recognize you if you guys come in and help clean up our country. I see that as a possibility. I'm not even going to put odds on it, but I see that as a greater possibility than Iran coming in and saving the day in Lebanon, which is just not going to happen because that expands the war even more. And I could be wrong, but Iran really does not want to get involved in this war directly. That's why it uses proxy fighters. If Iran says we're going to start bombing Israel, you're going to see Iran get damaged way worse than any of these other countries because the United States has problems with Iran. A lot of Western European countries have problems with Iran. There's alliances against Iran. The Arab states, the governments of Arab states don't like Iran. So Iran's it's not isolated. It's not really on its own. It has these other groups that proxies. But if the Iranian government, as the leaders of the sovereign state of Iran, launch a weapon into Israel, it's all bets are off. That's a full-on war. And then a whole bunch of missiles are going to go back into Iranian territory. And quite frankly, Iran is not equipped for that. They're not ready for that. They don't want it. It's a fight they can't win, which is why they've been fighting with proxies all this time. So I don't see Iran coming to save the day for any of their proxies right now because it puts them into the direct line of fire. And I think enough people in Iran have enough sense to know that's not something they can win. Wow, I just went off on a bizarre tangent, didn't I? Woo! What just happened there? Thank you all for tuning in. This has been a fantastic office hours. I haven't even got to the rest of you guys' comments yet. Okay, so that rant got started with Dr. Knockers talking about some Lebanese people that might actually support Hezbollah. By the way, Dr. Knockers, you could make the same connection to Gaza Strip, that many Gaza residents felt that their lives are so horrible. They just supported Hamas because at least Hamas is trying to do something. Hamas is trying to fight back. People in desperate situations will support groups that offer them any glimpse of hope of getting out of a bad situation. Unfortunately, that hope seems fleeting even with support of a Hamas or a Hezbollah or anything else, because now we're in complete active war that these smaller entities simply cannot win against Israel, because Israel is a formative fighting force all by itself, but it also is a U.S. ally, and so the United States supplies tons of weaponry to Israel as well, and that's not something you can say about any of the other groups around the region that are fighting against Israel. None of them have a giant rich state which sends them unlimited amounts of weaponry the way that the United States can do for Israel. And Dr. Knockers says, great rundown. Thank you, Dr. Knockers. Rex Plays says, that all made a lot of sense. It's very difficult to understand the stories coming out of the Middle East due to the incredible biases present. Indeed. And again, if I presented any bias to you whatsoever, please call me out and I will explain better how it's not a bias. I try to say, hey, I understand all sides here. In this particular mess, I feel bad for all the sides. I don't see anybody as a winner in the Middle East anytime soon, particularly the civilians that have nothing to do with this. That always bothers me. The civilian deaths do bother me, but civilian deaths are a part of war. They've been a part of every war throughout all human history. It just sucks we haven't figured out how to not have war yet. Okay. Let's see. Lily Pags totally agrees. Dr. Knocker says, thank you for addressing chat comments. Absolutely. Only here for the Pladcast says IDF is just their military. Yep. IDF is the Israeli Defense Force. That's the military. Some Rex plays as well. And Rex says, I would compare the modern Mossad to Cold War era CIA. Yep. Very, very proactive in their operations. They tend to literally not give a F if they piss anybody off. Yeah, good assessment, Rex. I agree with your assessment. Andrew Olive says, Israel, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. That's who recognized Israel and made peaceful relations with Israel during the Abraham Accords. Thank you, Andrew Olive. Andrew Olive follows up later. Morocco recognized Israel in exchange for U.S. recognition of the claim of Western Sahara. Bam, Andrew, dropping the Arab Accords knowledge on us. Thank you for that, Andrew. I think maybe I'm going to have to do a whole podcast just on that, especially given that we just did a podcast on it. And I'm so sorry. Please email me right now. I totally forgot. I get into a rant when you all start asking me great questions. When we start going into great questions and you guys are chiming in and helping enlighten me about facts as you look them up, and we're talking about these great I lose all track of time and I forgot to give you 5 points. So if you're in the chat room right now, please email me at JOBOYER. And the catchphrase is Abraham Accords. Put that in the chat room, please, Katie. Abraham Accords is the secret passcode to get you 5 points. You know what? Let's make it 7. Let's make it 7 points. Email me the words Abraham Accords, and you just got 7 points for hanging out in the online office hours, and I see that the office hour has come to a conclusion, although it just popped up. Max Sauce just subscribed at Tier 1. Thank you, Max Sauce. I never know what subscriptions get you, but thank you for doing it. You're the best, Max, and I love your sauce. First-time chatter from Max Sauce who says, Go Hokies. Boom. Mic drop on Max Sauce. Abraham Accords is in there as well. Email me with the catchphrase Abraham Accords, and you just earned 7 points for hanging out with me here on a rainy day, a rainy Sunday evening after a hurricane of a week where we also lost to the Hurricanes. Boy, we just took it on the chin from hurricane after hurricane this week. But I've had a hell of a great time chatting with you all tonight, and I hope that you are now slightly smarter about what's going on in the world, at least when it comes to Hezbollah and what's going on with the multiple fronts of a war that Israel is conducting. And not to mention anything about P. Diddy. So thank you all for tuning in. As always, hit me up in advance if you have specific topics you'd like to talk about before next week's office hours. And have a great week. Hopefully we'll see the sun, although it's supposed to rain a bit more. But stay dry, stay warm, stay happy, stay upbeat. The sun will eventually come out on all of these dour things we've been talking about. But you all have a great Sunday evening, a great Monday, and a great, fabulous week here at Virginia Tech. And specifically in World Regional Geography, a.k.a. World Regions, my favoriteest class to talk to you all about. But for now, as always, party on.